So let's dive into a moment of absolute crisis. A nation is under attack. Its leadership has been shattered, and suddenly, a new, wounded figure is thrust into power. This is the story of Mojtaba Khamenei, the cleric who has just inherited a republic in flames.
Think about that for a second. Those were his very first words to the nation. Not a call for peace, not a plea for calm, but a raw promise of retaliation. When he said this on March 12th, he set the tone for a whole new era. He wasn't just talking about his father's death, he was framing this as vengeance for every single citizen lost.
So how on earth did we get here? To really understand the man, you first have to understand the absolute firestorm that forged his leadership.
I mean, the speed of this whole thing is just staggering. On February 28th, a U.S.-Israeli strike takes out Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and the country is thrown into complete chaos. For days, nobody even knows if his son, Mojtaba, is alive. Then on March 11th, we finally get confirmation he's injured but alive. And just one day later, he's addressing the nation as its new leader. This wasn't a planned transition. This was a succession born from violence in a matter of days.
And you have to understand, this wasn't some distant political crisis for him. It was brutally personal. He was in the residence when it was hit. He lost his father, his mother, and his wife in that one blast. He himself was injured in his legs, hand, and arm. So he's rising to power not just as an heir, but as a survivor, a victim of the very same strike that created the job vacancy. And this brings us to the central puzzle of his appointment. How could a son inherit the top job in a republic that was literally founded on the idea of rejecting monarchy? This whole situation creates a massive ideological clash. I mean, the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khomeini, was crystal clear about this. Hereditary rule is sinister and has no place in Islam. And yet, fast forward to 2026, and the Assembly of Experts, the very group designed to pick the supreme leader, goes and appoints the son to succeed the father. It was a moment where the founding principles of the revolution crashed right into the hard reality of a crisis. Okay, so who is the man at the center of this massive contradiction? Well, his path to power was really built on two foundations: his experience in war and his deep, deep religious credentials. Get this, at just 17 years old. 17! At an age when most of us are thinking about school or weekend plans, Mojtaba joined the armed forces to fight in the brutal Iran-Iraq war. And that experience wasn't just some footnote in his life, it became a core part of his identity. His official biography is really specific about this. It says he served as simple Bazij, who are members of this incredibly powerful paramilitary volunteer force. Now that connects him directly to a key part of the security state, and it gives him huge credibility with the military and with hardliners. The other pillar of his life is faith. After the war, he just dove headfirst into religious studies, eventually teaching something called Kharij fiqh. Now, that might sound complicated, but all you need to know is that it's basically the PhD of Shia theology. It's the highest level of study you can achieve, and it is the essential, non-negotiable credential you need to even be considered for supreme leader. And he wasn't just studying alone in a room somewhere. He was building a powerful network. The people he studied under were titans of the establishment. A future head of the judiciary, a key hardliner in the Assembly of Experts, the first guy to run the Guardian Council. He was weaving himself deep into the clerical power structure. But his influence wasn't just built in the classroom or on the battlefield. For decades, he operated as one of the most powerful, unelected figures in all of Iran. What's so fascinating about Mojtaba Khamenei is that he's never had an official government job. Never. His power was all informal. He built these incredibly strong relationships with the IRGC and the Baji. He was famously close to the legendary Qasem Soleimani, and he was even accused of meddling directly in a presidential election. For years, he was a master of Iran's deep state, wielding immense power from behind the curtain. And this wasn't just some internal rumor, you know. As far back as 2019, the U.S. Treasury Department actually sanctioned him personally, and they basically identified him as a key operator carrying out his father's policies. So, to the outside world, he was already seen as a shadow leader. All of which brings us right back to this moment where his shadowy past and his public credentials have collided head-on with a national catastrophe. So in that moment of crisis, you have to ask, why him? Why the son? Well, the choice by the Assembly of Experts was a clear message. By picking a man with deep military ties, impeccable hardline credentials, and the ultimate personal motivation for revenge, they were signaling defiance. They chose continuity and confrontation over any kind of compromise.
And that leaves us with one final stark question. A man forged by war now leads a nation at war. A cleric with deep institutional power now holds it all. He's promised vengeance, but he's facing a crisis his predecessors never could have imagined. The challenge for this cleric with a gun is no longer just about wielding influence from the shadows. It's about survival and making sure the Republic itself survives with him.